Welcome to South Asian Environment Dialogue. As those of you who see this program every week, you know that this is a program where we discuss the range of issues on environment and climate change and also the developmental sector in South Asia in particular, but globally in general, because South Asia is a very important cog in the wheel. So we really cannot isolate South Asia from the rest of the world. And we discuss, as I said, range of issues. And today we are going to discuss an issue which is not only an Asian issue, but also a global issue at this point of time. Heat wave, heat. Has the world is becoming too hot to handle? Is it too hot to handle? That's what we are going to discuss for the next 50 minutes or so. And I have a great panel to discuss this. I have with me Dr. KJ Ramesh, former Director General of IMD India. Welcome, Dr. Ramesh, to the show. It's been a great privilege to have you.
Thank you very much, Jayanto. Happy to be part of it.
Absolutely, it's a great pleasure. I have with me Professor A.P. Dimri from School of Environmental Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, Delhi, India, and one of the foremost expert on this line. And recently, he has come up with a paper with many other top meteorologists in the country about the climate change issues, including heat wave, and really we'll be discussing on those issues. Welcome, Professor Dimri, to the show.
Good evening, Dr. Jayanto. Thank you very much.
Great privilege. I have with me Gunjan Jain, my young media friend from Climate Trend. Climate Trend is an organization which works on climate change issues across pan-India and pan-Asia. And they have come up with a report recently called Wet Bulb Phenomena, basically talking about how heat and humidity in duet is affecting the whole scenario. And really welcome Gunjan to the show. Looking forward to to know the details of the report and how it is impacting the country, impacting the people at large, life and livelihoods. Welcome Gunjan.
Thank you so much, Dada. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. And we expect that anytime Mr. Ali Tawqeed Sheikh, he's an independent water and climate expert from Pakistan, also member of the National Climate Change Council, which is chaired by none other than the Prime Minister of Pakistan, to join. I hope that he will be joining shortly and we'll be having the input from Pakistan. So that it is. Now, before I start the ball rolling and kind of giving the floor to you, just a very brief background. This year, the North India was reeling from extremely high heat, almost heat wave. And I think only a couple of days before, North India, including Delhi, had the first splash of rain. So almost delayed by a month. Experts can dwell more on that. So it's a very unprecedented situation, and it is getting worse and worse with each and every year. Has it become a regular trend? We need to know that. Not only North India, along with the Pakistan, the kind of related areas of Pakistan were also under very severe heat. And even the places like Canada and North America, the places not really known for heat rather than the other around, are being affected. I was told, my research team told me that this year, Canada logged 49 degrees centigrade, which is highest ever in Canada. So that's a kind of a record for Canada. We know 50 degree, 52 degree from Pakistan, close to 50 degrees from Rajasthan, but 49 degrees centigrade in Canada. So this Western North American heat wave has been really all over the world. And perhaps the world is talking more on this because of this Canada and US being affected, because India, Pakistan, and South Asia get affected every year. Nothing new on that. So on that front, let me start with Professor Ramesh. Dr. Ramesh, what do you feel? That is it now becoming a trend, or is it an exception this year? How do you see it?
No, these epochs of heat waves will be a normal now. It was a tropical phenomena so far. Africa and Asia, Southeast Asia, West Asia in particular, because of desert conditions, they used to have these 45 plus and 50 degrees centigrade temperatures. But now, because of the global warming and the semi-permanent ridge in the westerlies, atmosphere moves from west to east globally around the globe. So when it is in forms of ridge and a crest, when ridge is there, so that is an anticyclone, and that will be the relatively higher temperature zone. So what is happening really over America presently and a few years before over Europe also. So this ridge pattern was becoming a stagnant one that we call in terminology semi-permanent ridge. It stays for 10 days, 15 days, so it doesn't move at all. So when that kind of semi-permanent ridge position is there and a summer, seasonal summer of that particular location, it enhances the temperature well above the normal of that particular region. So anything more than 5 degrees above normal is considered as heat wave. So their normal temperatures are about 37 degrees centigrade on an average in summer there. So now it has crossed definitely about 12 degrees, 13 degrees above normal conditions have prevailed. 4 such epochs were seen in last 5 years, 5 weeks, sorry. Last five weeks, we have seen 4 such epochs. And another one, America and Canada are going to experience from Monday onwards. So this is going to be another episode of heat wave going to be experienced. So this is the sort of conditions. So one has to learn to live with. We have started learning to live with it because of heat wave action plans, etc. We have worked on it in India.
Okay.
So that's how the morbidities, mortalities we could reduce.
I'll come to that, Dr. Ramesh, and really would like to know from you that why you feel this is becoming a regular phenomena. As you said, 10 degree, 12 degree over the normal is a very unprecedented situation. But before that, let me go over to Professor Demre. Professor Demre, this is very unusual, to say to the least. This is 10, 12 degrees centigrade rise in Canada. But before kind of dwelling on Canada, let's dwell something closer to our place, your place, Delhi, and the surrounding North India. You have recently come up with the paper on the climate change impact. I think also Rajivan was part of it. There you also dwelled a lot on the heat wave scenario. So how bad is the scenario on heat in India right now?
Yeah, as Ramesh has told that procedurally that why heat wave is increasing more and more. And if you are talking of the synoptic system of the omega block or ridge, what he mentioned in the increase of the, see, we have to understand that from where the heat is coming for the subcontinent in this context. Global warming is well debated, so I'll not dwell much on that. We all understand that very well. So somewhere we are getting more energy in this context, not only at the surface of the earth, but in the vertical atmosphere also. So simultaneously surface is heating and simultaneously our vertical atmosphere column is also heating and it's getting rarefied. So what, of course, Gunjan is here. She will talk more on the wet bulb concept, whatever it is. So you need more moisture to kind of saturate this column of which is having moisture temperature feedback mechanism we call in atmospheric science when we are talking in vertical sense, and particularly when we are talking in, I'm not going in that paper right now, mechanism of heat wave, why it's happening. Not only in Canada, I read some of the newspaper in Andhra Pradesh, there is a one station where in this summer temperature reaches 51 degrees centigrade. So now point is that why certain factors of heat is so much that heat wave is kind of a continuous phenomena, number one. Number 2 point, when we are talking per se of the heat wave in the context of increased temperature, the distribution of temperature, if you look this particular year, not only for the temperature point of view, many one-day records are broken. In winter, we have many day rain there. Winter temperature were higher than the earlier. Similarly, if you remember May, we have a good amount of rain, right? May is drier in Delhi. So in May also, one day record is broken. May temperature were lesser than July temperature, which is very quite surprising because July time monsoon comes and your temperature gets damped. So moisture temperature feedback mechanism is very, very important, in particular when you are talking of heat wave. Orissa is a state where always you have an issue with heat wave particularly. So it means heat wave is not only increase of drier temperature, but there's a moisture also comes into the picture when we are talking heat wave for a continuous 4 or 5.
They're calling wet bulb phenomena. I think we really need to talk about this paper much more. Welcome, Mr. Ali Tawqeed Sheikh. I already introduced you, as I said, that Mr. Sheikh is a very eminent expert from Pakistan, a water and climate expert, and also member of the Prime Council, National Climate Change Council. Climate Change Council, National Climate Change Council. Sheikh, but before coming to you, as because before that was talking about this, as because Dr. Dewey was talking about this, you have come up with this humidity duet. Climate Change has come up with this report. Analysis has come up with this heatwave analysis, so to say, on this. Can you elaborate on that? What exactly that is? Can you elaborate on that? What exactly that is, and where do we stand right now?
So, right, Dada, thank you so much. Heat is, of course, the most understood, so to say, heat is, of course, the most understood, so to say, phenomena, and I think that very much speaks for itself. And I think in terms of what it speaks for itself, kind of in terms of what it implies and the kind of intensity, the kind of natural hazard it is. Wet bulb phenomena, I mean, it's something which is still phenomena. I mean, sort of a new something which is still people are still a sort of a media and phenomena that to understand. But for tropical countries like India, which have for tropical countries like India, which have the atmosphere a lot when you're combining also in the atmosphere, when you're combining the temperatures as well as the level of heat temperatures, that is what kind of combines to form the wet bulb temperature. That is what kind of combines to form the wet bulb temperature. You sweat when temperatures are really hot, and you sweat when temperatures are really hot. But when the humidity levels are also high, but when the humidity levels are also high, comparatively would be higher, your wet bulb temperatures your body is higher. It means that your body in some ways, like some of the scientists say that in some ways, like some of the scientists say that you're actually it's physiologically impacting your body. Which means that it's physiologically in extremely high temperatures. If you are in extremely high temperatures, you do not have potential to cool down. Where do not have potential to cool down. Where it's not, then those kind of situations would then those kind of situations would lead to impacting your
How bad is the situation? How bad is the situation in India? How bad is the situation? How bad is the situation in India right now?
If you look at temperatures, wet bulb temperatures, if you look at temperatures, wet bulb temperatures in comparison to normal, they are lower. Centigrade temperatures, in relation to a 42 degrees, in relation to a 42 degrees, in dry heat might not have that much impact to the human body because you are able to sweat out the body. Your body is able to cool down. But if there is an 80% humidity, but if there is an 80% humidity, it would mean that probably about any time that probably about any time temperature above it starts affecting the body. At 30 degrees, even a fit at 30 degrees or very hot temperature, even a fit person cannot really even a fit person cannot really
work. Gunjan, I'll come back to you to know specifically about the cities. To know specifically because I wrote about I can remember because I wrote about the city of I can remember Kolkata, which is presently having around 120 days of presently having around 120 days of critical wet bulb temperature. 230 to 40 days to go up to around by 230 to 40 days. So that was really very scary. 210 scenario. So that was really very scary. Let us know we have spoken about India, but let us know we have spoken about India right now. Let us know how the situation in Pakistan right now. Pakistan is also suffering from Pakistan is also suffering from Indian Pakistan. It's nothing new for the countries like India and Pakistan. But this year, India, Pakistan, but also the Canada and US are suffering. Not only India, Pakistan, so what's your take on that? Canada and US are suffering. Is in Pakistan. So what's your take on that? How the situation is in Pakistan right now?
Thank you very much, and my profound apologies for joining late. Thank you very much, and my profound apologies for joining late. To all of you, as the luck would have it, what an idiot I am. I was trying to connect to a meeting that I'll be attending tomorrow. Connect to a meeting that I'll be attending tomorrow.
It's a new era technology. It happens. It happens.
So I wasted 15 minutes, and I apologize. So I wasted 15 minutes, and I apologize. We had in Jacobabad. Last year we had in Jacobabad the hottest on the planet in human history. On the planet in human, the recorded human history, I should say. In the recorded human history, I should say. Some years before that, we had a heat wave in Karachi. Before that, we had a heat wave in Karachi. That in 2010, there were lots of people. That just the way in 2010, there were lots of heat waves in Ahmedabad. Lost to heat waves in Ahmedabad. The work that I did in Ahmedabad And the work that I did in Ahmedabad and some of the work that I did in Karachi and some shows me that all these deaths are preventable, and I want to focus not on science, preventable, but I want to focus what can help us save lives. But I want to focus on what can help us save lives. Given the fact that we have governance challenges, given the fact that we have governance challenges and the financial challenges in many developing countries like from Ahmedabad, it is from Ahmedabad's guide that there were three basic things. One was awareness raising. People need to know that heat wave is coming and what to do. Know that heat wave is coming and what to do. And the messages are very simple. They can be simple messages that our parents tell us, but a campaign from radio and TVs need to dominate the conversation, and therefore the people need to be forewarned. That's one. Okay. And Ahmedabad, since then, have saved many lives. And since we developed our heat plan in Karachi, I think we have also saved almost 1,500 lives in Karachi because of stakeholders' engagement to have awareness campaign. People need to know beforehand. That's one. The second point that need to highlight, and that's very important contribution of Ahmedabad, is that early warning system has to be simple enough for a common man to understand. In colors, red, yellow, green, blue type. They cannot understand 150 degrees or 50 degrees centigrade, less or more or moisture. And this is high science for them. So just like traffic lights, they can be as simple as this. And those early warning communication systems have to be tested.
Very well taken. I'll come back to the other points later, but very, very important point you flagged off. Dr. Ramesh, straight to you, what Mr. Sheikh was just pointing out. Also, my understanding is when we are talking about the weather extremities, the kind of communication we engage, say, for a cyclone or for a flood, not really it happens for the event like heat wave. I really don't know the reason. Perhaps we are too familiar with the heat. We think that heat is, we all know we need not promote or propagate. What is the scenario? But it's a fact that heat wave or the heat situation are not being promoted. The communication is really less than what it is desired, but not like really cyclone. So for example, cyclone wind we see in Bangladesh or in West Bengal, there are various color flags, 1 flag, 2 flag, 3 flag, and people run to the shelters. But not really heat wave, we don't have that kind of communication. What's your take on that, Dr. Ramesh?
Yeah, it was so till 2015 in India. Not after that. While we started working in Ahmedabad first, Ahmedabad Heatwave Action Plan with the Public Health Foundation of India, and temperature warming epoch is very much predictable. Models are very good in predicting temperature anomalies. So once those things are picked up, as our esteemed colleague Sheikh Saab said, color-coded messages are prepared from then onwards, and then those were displayed, and traffic lights, traffic has a LED displays, and all those LED displays and FM channels and media. So that was announced at least 2 days before. Definitely it was announced. And then Heatwave Action Plan consists of propagating, sending to the people, minimize your exposure between 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock, where the heat will be more. Around 2 o'clock, maximum temperature will be there. So between 10 and 2, exposure should be avoided. And then make arrangements in hospitals for people who are affected by heat stress and morbidities, etc. And another couple of important things have happened when we have expanded this Heatwave Action Plan across the country, states and major cities, so that I can discuss in the next round. But that is not the case anymore after 2015. We have reduced the mortalities significantly by 2018 itself.
Okay. Unfortunately, we need a kind of an episode like 215 to remind ourselves that we need to do more. That's the unfortunate part of the story. We should be more proactive and really stop the deaths from the very beginning. And also, I think, even from individuals' point of view, you talked about the government and perhaps I am in this position. I think also as an individual, perhaps it's in our psyche, the way we see a cyclone, the way we see a flood, and the immediate impact that it can have on me. Heatwave, perhaps we are more, being a tropical country, we are more kind of known, akin to the heat and really don't mind having heat. So perhaps that mindset also an issue with the individuals. They don't really take it that too seriously. Dr. Debri, very interesting point, but let me probe another point. You wrote about that paper about India in the last 10 years, the huge number of deaths happened due to heat wave. Despite the numbers, it's a huge number. Why not really, neither the government, I am saying, not saying individual organization, but general administration, people at large, institutions, don't take it maybe that level, that the way they take it, say, the cyclone?
Jayanta, I look at it 3 ways on this issue. One is to lead to understand the process. Number one, if we understand cyclone or heat wave well or not. Now, mortality is it's an impact or outfall of these processes, how the mortality is there or not. And third is the how much the flag and all, that is the common understanding for a common man. And as far as tropical cyclone is concerned, still tropical cyclones dynamics is not that well understood, because I am a meteorologist. There is ongoing effort is going, but however, the forecast procedure with the governance in the tropical cyclone is up to the so scaling order, then mortality has been reduced.
Exactly.
So, cyclone is one, but mortality reduction using the forecast methods, offshore governance method, coastal governance method has been increased up to the level that you announced to vacate the places and go. So mortality has been reduced, and in due course of time, in last 50 years, you see the tropical cyclone forecast is steering its direction, its intensity. That is very phenomenal from Indian Meteorological Department. They are doing very good prediction for tropical cyclone as far as meso scale. But still, I am telling that understanding of the system still needs more and more time. Like if you see that tropical cyclone is intruding now more inside till Bihar. If you see, yes, earlier the tropical cyclone used to be only in the coastal region. Outfall was the coastal region. Why? Because the Indian Ocean, you have the heat, and you have to understand that Atlantic and Pacific is open north and south. So heat is exchanging very well north and south. But in case of Indian Ocean, you don't have, you have a northern Indian subcontinent. It's holding the Indian Ocean. So SST is warming, land surface is warming, and by virtue of that, any perturbation which is getting generated in the Indian Ocean, it is getting energetics from Indian Ocean. And when it enters the land mass, it comes the moisture still till the Bihar. You take the Amphan and many, I will not go to the name. Coming to the heat wave of today's discussion, heat wave also been well understood, but as far as the national definition of heat wave by India Meteorological Department, there is a missing moisture feedback mechanism in that. It says that you have something 5%, 5 degrees centigrade above till 4 continuous year. Now, this is a temperature delta T. But here the heat wave, that's why I said Orissa. Orissa, why heat wave is felt more? Because there is a more moisture available in that time. And the Ahmedabad experiment, even the European 2019 and 2013 heat wave was have a similar kind of. So probably in course of time, heat wave mechanism, heat wave mortality reduction will be also taken into account in that case. But the point is, mechanism of heat wave in understanding to the governance, to the policy decision, from the service sector to the implementation sector, maybe need to work upon that. And I'm sure that in coming time it will happen. And some of the universities, some of the state, they close their offices for that particular heat wave time. I know, I'm aware of that fact. In Rajasthan and many other states, if heat wave is going for more, the common offices, common schools gets closed. So maybe the escalation will come.
We will be having, but this is despite the fact the number of people being kind of exposed, impacted, and dying out of heat wave is much more right now. As you said, for the tropical cyclone, this kind of prediction is very good, and government system of kind of intimation is very good. So despite heat wave killing more people, we are kind of not really giving that amount of importance, perhaps not. And as you both of Dr. Ramesh and you said, perhaps in the future days, the scenario will change. I'll come to that, but very quickly, Gunjan, we are talking about this heat and humidity impacting together. you also talked about this wet bulb phenomena. Can you very specifically, because then I'll take your input to the experts, both in India and Pakistan, that what is the kind of wet bulb temperature, or what are the hot spots in India, maybe also in Pakistan and other parts of South Asia? Gunjan.
Right. Thank you, Dada. I mean, a lot of the coastal cities that you see are definitely your prime hotspot areas. I mean, even now, if you look at studies, I mean, they cite that 12 to 66 days annually are potentially the deadly heat and humidity combinations in India. And if you look at the hotspot, the East Coast cities like Kolkata or the areas, Sundarban areas, Cuttack, Brahmapur, Tiruvananthapuram, Chennai, Mumbai, all of these are cities which are extremely impacted, and they definitely fall in the categories which do have a high risk potential, where populations do need a better preparedness and adaptation program. And definitely with Professor Dimri and Dr. Ramesh and everybody has been talking about, like with increased global warming, projections for climate change and increased temperatures, the number of days for this heat and humidity will definitely go on increasing. And just like we are seeing in different parts where like cities which earlier did not experience those levels of temperatures, I think, you know, more and more of those will just keep getting impacted. So, I mean, if that preparedness...
I remember, Gunjan, sorry to interrupt you. I can remember your report. Chennai is supposed to have more than 300 days of critical wet bulb temperature by 2100. So out of 360 days, 300 days. So almost unbearable. It's really in a position that you really cannot bear it anymore. So it's really quite a difficult situation.
Absolutely, Dada. Kochi, in fact, it cites that almost 98% days of the year, almost 362 days, Kochi
would have.
Pakistan? So, in fact, this year, when we were putting together this paper and when we looked at it, then the border towns in, on the India-Pakistan border, Bahawalpur, etc., they already had like wet bulb temperatures of 32 degrees, etc., which is extremely high. And the stations, I think, on the India side, that data was not available. But definitely, I think if you see around the Punjab border, all these towns, they're definitely highly impacted.
That we maybe geopolitically have our issues, but when heat impacted, they don't discriminate between India and Pakistan. Say they impact both people at both sides of the border. So heat is an issue in Pakistan for quite some time. It's nothing new. What do you think? How you also spoke about the Ahmedabad model. You were talking about the Karachi. How the government? We just spoke to Dr. Ramesh and Dr. Dimri and Professor Dimri to know the Indian perspective, but how Pakistan government, within the impact of climate change, so to say, or the weather phenomena, how importance they really attach to heatwave? Do they give any importance?
Yes. Before I answer your question more directly, I wish to broaden the conversation by pointing out that then there are some other aspects about heat waves that we do not understand fully as yet. One is connecting it with glacial melt in upper Indus Basin, which gives early water, which results in changing cropping pattern in the Indus Basin area. And it also means that early heat in Afghanistan means early glacial melt, giving more water to Pakistan at a time when we are under water scarcity, pre-monsoon. Now, it also results in heat wave induced disasters such as flooding and flash flooding and so forth. It also means that heat spikes result in crop failures. The wheat, for example, can wilt beyond a certain temperature, and that poses a very serious food security threat. Now, coupled with rapidly depleting groundwater in Pakistan and in parts of India, those countries are competing with each other in destroying their groundwater. It means that heat water gets more severe in terms of its impact. And what we have failed to understand that this has been there historically, it is only now that we have begun to understand that it is particularly anti-poor. heat wave will affect everyone, but it will affect the poor neighborhoods more than anybody else.
Okay.
In Karachi, when we did household survey, we found that the poor households do not have ventilation. The young children had gone out to work. Parents and grandparents were at home suffocating because there was no wind circulation in their houses. It essentially means that in congested neighborhoods in Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan, there's only one entrance with a window, and it's closed from 3 sides, back to back. Now, in terms of government of Pakistan's planning and all that, it's a, I don't know if you have the time for the answer, but I can try to give you a very quick answer. I think typically governments tend to look at more resource-intensive areas. That's why I picked Bangladesh as a good example, Ahmedabad as a good example. I want to give you some examples from Karachi, which may be useful for other cities as well. Most people in the heat wave went to 4 or 5 biggest hospitals. Whereas for heat stroke, you don't need to go to a hospital, and certainly you don't need to go to the best hospitals. You can go to the neighborhood hospitals. Just the way a wedding hall can accommodate people for wedding, they can serve as a shelter in heat wave for the poor people. Water and shade can be furnished there. And philanthropists and citizens can do that. You don't really need government.
Mr. Sheikh, sorry to interrupt you.
And we train private sector and that worked.
Sorry to interrupt you. Have this kind of initiatives that you talked about, that wedding hall converted to a kind of a agglomeration for the poor people or otherwise, have they been kind of attempted in Karachi? Are they in place? Are they on ground level? Are they happening?
Yes, in many cases, when we had wolf cry that a heat wave is coming, because after the disastrous heat wave in 2011 or 14, there have been several calls that there is a serious heat wave coming. People mobilize, and the wedding halls and school grounds, hockey grounds, and
absolutely. I take this point. I take this point and go to Dr. Ramesh on that. Dr. Ramesh, Mr. Sheikh has opened up a very interesting issue. That first of all, it's a class issue as well. When the heat wave happening, it's affecting the poor people more. Maybe the slum population more. Maybe the squatters more. People, the kind of the people who live and having their livelihoods on roads are more. So it's also a class issue. When cyclone comes and other comes, they do also affect the poor people more. But in this case, heat wave, it's more kind of a on your face kind of thing. Now, before that, another very interesting issue I also would like to draw Dr. Dimri and Gunjan into it. Just now, Mr. Sheikh pointed out that is the individual weather event happening in Afghanistan has a relationship with Pakistan scenario, with Indian scenario, with Bangladesh scenario. But unfortunately, in this South Asian environment dialogue being brought on by the Climate Channel Canada and also the Doodles India and NoTV Bangladesh, we often discuss it, but we really do not talk about these agendas together. As an independent experts, now Dr. Ramesh, you are no more in the government, you're retired now. You don't think that it is time that we really talk about these issues pan-South Asia and come up with some kind of a workable solution, workable way? Dr. Ramesh.
Yeah, in weather, particularly weather and climate services, particularly DGs of South Asia, particularly Pakistan Meteorological Department, Indian Meteorological Department, meteorological services in Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Myanmar. So are on continuous touch, particularly in terms of transboundary hazards are concerned. Whether it is a cyclone, whether it is a heat wave, cold wave, thunderstorms, lightning, floods, conditions leading to floods, flash floods, etc. So now we have a continuous dialogue. Like during the monsoon season, DG of Bangladesh and DG of Pakistan talking to IMD-DZ to know the advancement conditions of the monsoon, when they can expect in their
some
region.
coordination is there.
That is already there. But for a cyclone, we have a much bigger cooperation. Now for the flash floods, we have a integrated mechanism covering all the countries of South Asia. So there is something called severe weather forecast project, where not only heat wave, all other multi-hazards are also hydrometeorological hazards part of it. So daily information is shared, and transboundary hazards and vulnerabilities, risks are discussed, and common bulletins are prepared and shared. That program office of this severe weather forecast program,
they do that.
That shifts.
Do you see any scope of further improving on that? Do you see any scope of further improving on that?
Yeah, as far as the anomalous weather is concerned, whether it is heat wave or cyclone or heavy rainfall, thunderstorm, lightning, so much of interaction, exchange of live information is happening, at least in South Asian countries, across the South Asian countries. Only what is different is the response mechanisms locally. Okay. How quickly you take this information to the community, how quickly the stakeholders are linked in, and how quickly the collective response and appropriate response can be organized. That's where the challenge.
I think that's fair. Now, Dr. Debri, just to kind of probe further on that, yes, I understand from Dr. Ramesh talk that there are some coordination, pan-South Asia coordination, but Mr. Sheikh has opened up another interesting point. Not only the hardcore IMD or the meteorological factors, but the links at groundwater level. So other issues which are having indirect relationship with the weather, they are also need to be taken in the basket. But perhaps we don't have that level of coordination. And I spoke to many experts, they say the data, Indian scientists don't get data from Pakistan, Pakistan scientists don't get data from India, so forth and so on. So what do you think, that is it the time with this climate change getting bigger and bigger, it is the time to open up and having more coordination?
Yes, I think you raised a very valid point, and I think Dr. Ramesh will agree with me. He knows me very well too. This is the issue. Like, I work on Himalaya now, but now I don't have data from Nepal. Right? What professor from Pakistan is telling is absolutely right. Indus Basin originates from China, goes down, and it has a participation from Kabul, draining to the main river. Then it is going to the lower riparian in the Pakistani region, where a lot of water is coming from upstream. There is definitely a very sore point as far as the researcher's viewpoint is concerned. I am not good in geopolitics. And very oftenly we fail to trigger. I work on Western disturbances also, unfortunately. Now, Western disturbance comes from West, over from Pakistan, Kabul. Now, for me, that is a data gap of any kind of mechanism if I want to establish. Of course, now there is a gridded data available. But if I want to have in situ data in particular for certain kind of mechanism, but now there are two issues in this. I do not know what services sectors has the issue with. But the point is now how to improve upon that, because sharing data from a researcher's point of view is a very, very difficult for me. Even I do not get some time. Now, what we did in Upper Indus Basin, maybe professor from Pakistan knows or not, we started working on Upper Indus Basin network. So it was not data sharing network. What we did, we said we'll share the knowledge co-sharing, we said that. We'll not give you data, you don't give me data, but at least knowledge we should share. Somewhere, what I mean to give with this an example, that somewhere we have to instigate certain kind of mechanism per se from the research front, where we can have a platform where we can discuss upon certain issues, because we have a very close proximity of the southern continent, this South Asian continent. Similarly, in case of heat wave, what we are talking, raised in various forums politely, whatever I can do. But this will, if helps, it brings out many kind of understanding, better understanding, and our persuasion towards research leading to missing data gap will help in establishing the facts, maybe the heat wave, maybe the flood, maybe the cloud burst, mortality, and so many things are there. All of us know that.
And also, I think just taken forward that what the discussion is that with this climate change and its impact getting bigger and bigger, and the extreme weather events are getting more intense, more frequent, perhaps these data gaps are now becoming critical, because this is not really a research issue any time more. This is an issue of survival, because unless the scientists like you do research and come out with the data, come out with the actual kind of roadmap, the executors, the politicians, the executives cannot work. So I think it's if we want to see it in the other round, it's just not the research, it's just not the academics, it's also the harming the interest of common people down the ground if we do not allow the scientists to work together, collaborate in a much stronger way and with the data. So I'll give you an example. Joint Commission on Water between India and Bangladesh. It is not really a joint commission. It's Joint Commission India, Joint Commission Bangladesh. It doesn't help. So I think, Dr. Ramesh, I think people like you need to lead and push the agenda much more forward.
Can I come?
Very quickly, because I'll come to climate change very quickly.
Very quickly. See, what we had the problem was the discharge of water at the transboundaries from one upstream country to the downstream country. So now we have a mechanism that data being sensitive as felt by the countries, that is shared between the countries at official level. But after 1 year, that data is in public domain.
Okay.
After 1 year. 1 year.
After
so there
1
are
year.
websites in Bangladesh, there are websites in Nepal, there are websites by Central Water Commission here. So current data is not available. Water resources information systems.
But after 1 year, it will become available.
So
okay.
that after 1 year data is available.
I completely agree with Dr. Ramesh that things have improved compared to maybe 10 years down the line. But
please allow me to say 1 or 2 words on this.
Very quickly.
If we don't use it, we lose it, and we have been losing it. Data's utility for heat waves point of view or water point of view is on real-time basis. But having said that, we may not be providing data to each other, but the private sector has used sophisticated modeling to predict heat waves. And based on that, they're doing hedging for the commodity pricing. So Indian or Pakistani governments may be as smart as they are. They may not like to share data with each other, but the private sector has begun to make money out of this. And they do. And they'll continue to do that. When it comes to protecting lives, at least the city governments have some data to predict on short-term basis, on day 2 or 4 days basis, and they can develop this traffic light signals to prevent life.
I get the point. I get the point.
Coming back to where I started.
Mr. Sheikh, I think all of us agree with you that there is data deficiency. Even Dr. Ramesh is saying that we have improved over maybe 5 years down the line, but still I think he will also agree that we have more scope of cooperation data-wise. Maybe there are some sensitive data which cannot be shared straight away, but other data can be, which is of mutual advantage. I have 5 minutes, about 5 to 7 minutes. I'll start with Gunjan and then I'll come to all of you. Now this tendency of ascribing anything on climate change. We know that globally there's warming taking place. People are talking about 3 to 5 degrees centigrade rise with the kind of countries not cutting emission adequately. The Glasgow is coming out. Really don't know with the COVID background what will happen in Glasgow in any way. But there is always the tendency to ascribe everything on climate change. But I think, as been pointing out, that there are certain issues which can we do ourselves. Gunjan, are we really, this is a soft option? Whatever we don't understand, getting bigger, put it on climate change? Gunjan?
Right, Dada. I think this is more recent because, I mean, when in fact, in the last 4 or 5 years that I've been looking at climate change communications just in India only, and it's something which is only now building up because a lot of the attribution science is coming out and being much more vocal about it. So I think that entire the linkage between the science and communicating that is not that old. So the fact that, you know, if we're trying to say that ascribing everything to climate change, it's something which has only started happening in the last few years, where any event that happens, your scientists are immediately...
Is it an easy way out? Is it an easy way out that okay, put it on climate change, even from a journalist point of view. From a journalist point of view, when I'm talking to my editor, I say the heat has gone up to black of La Nina or whatever. My editor will say, I don't understand this. But if I say the climate change is happening, so the heat is going up, okay, it's a great news, come up with that. So I think it's also an easy way out for all of us.
So there are two sides to it. I mean, one is, of course, why is it happening, where the climate change plays a role. And the other is, of course, how are we managing that event? And that is where I think everybody, what Sheikh sir and everybody else has been talking about is that is where a lot of the the discussion is missing, because we fail to talk about the resilience, the adaptation, and really zero down on what needs to be done.
Perhaps we'll learn to be really understanding the issue better in the years to come. Dr. Ramesh, your view on that? Everything putting on climate change?
No, this attribution science is growing very strongly now after the previous IPCC assessment report 5. And now the new assessment report will come this year, and that will bring more of fundamental basis of attribution to various climate change indicators in a quantitative manner in different sectors: water, agriculture, public health, air quality, environment like waste and other issues. So now it is going to be an integrated effort, like atmosphere, ocean and air quality environment put together, affecting the climate system and earth system. So it is a new science is emerging definitely in AR6 now, and it will be a fundamentally different type of projections will come out compared to the RCPs which we had in assessment report 5.
Exactly.
So we'll have different ones. So it will be a new dimensional shift to the assessment of climate change now.
But perhaps Dr. Ramesh, very quickly, because we are just running out of time, very quickly what Dr. Dimri was pointing out, perhaps also the time is up when we see the meteorological events together, combined events, say heat and humidity, or the high tide and the cyclone has happened in Yas, you know much better. You talked about it a lot. So I think now the situation has come when we need to consider this combined effect rather than standalone effects and try to work on that. I'm sure that we are going to do.
Yeah, it is all multi-hazard vulnerability now. People are looking not by the impacted by only floods or cyclone. It is a multi-hazard vulnerability and multi-hazard risks one has to manage. And SDGs essentially talk about that. Manage the risk and work towards the sustainability.
Okay, great. Dr. Dimri, your take on that?
See, climate change is given a lot of hype. I work on climate and I work on the paleoclimate also. So we have little ice age, we have older dryas, we have a younger dryas. Harappa civilization died. Dholavira, we found the died civilization. So this evolution of climate change is there. How well we understand that? The point which I want to connect of climate change in today's topic is that with the increased temperature, we have forgotten to estimate that there is a more number of heat wave cases, there will be more number of lightning cases, there will be more number of tropical cyclones, because there is a lot of energy is available in the free atmosphere, because temperature is driving it, right? So that's what is the point which need to be captured primarily from the climate change and increased temperature debate, which is the crux of this process understanding as far as I work. And then this process understanding should go to the service sector, which meteorological departments of respective countries. So that's where is the disconnect is missing. Like I want to, when I was working in cloudburst case, I found the definition of the cloudburst in the meteorological department is very, very old. It doesn't suit anymore. Similarly, if you look at the heat wave definition, it is simply based on temperature. There is no mention of moisture. So is that with the climate change debate, with the increased understanding by various sector, research, or maybe a common man, we like Sheikh Saab is telling that a poor man is dying more. So what the mortality then? The rich guys are dying less than the poor.
Exactly.
Concept of mortality comes, concept of health comes. So these all should come into the resilience sector also. That's what is a missing link in the climate change debate, as far as I understood the debate from last 20 years.
And it is also becoming important to embrace that missing link that you are just been mentioning. If that missing link remains with the scientist, then it is going to be percolated to the politician and the executives. If the scientists don't put the dots together, then that will not be communicated to the politicians. So who are, at the end of the day, whatever you say, whatever Dr. Ramesh says as an institutional head, end of the day, the minister in charge, the politics, the party in charge, the government in charge has to take the decision. Across the world, I'm not talking about India. So unless this data goes properly, the dots connected properly, I don't think that we'll be kind of improving on climate change action the way we should have. Mr. Sheikh, what's the point you take in Pakistan context? We're just concluding, very quick.
Yes, I think the science and the scientists are way behind, because we have dismissed traditional knowledge about glacial behaviors, about monsoon patterns, and so on and so forth. And high priests of science have declared everything illegitimate and is a grey literature. Our communities, our people know a lot more than our policymakers and scientists do. Scientists are prisoners of GCMs, which is linear thinking, one issue at a time. Right now, we are talking about attributed sciences, and then we'll talk about something else. And every scientific development requires a decade and a half. But the climatic changes are happening at much faster rate. They're adding to vulnerabilities. They're eating up the delta in Bangladesh and coastlines in India and Pakistan, and not allowing us much time or any capacity to deal with our deltas and cropping patterns. So my submission is, pure science, the way we know it in IPCC, it has failed the planet. It has guided the discourse, but its pace is too slow. By the time a report comes, it's already 15 years, 20 years old science. So we need to transcend and move forward to protect our communities and populations.
I think that's a very, very interesting point that I think everybody will agree that the IPCC or the UNFCCC, the way they deal with the climate science, they need to leapfrog. They need to leapfrog, and they need to kind of be par with, as Mr. Sheikh pointing out, that if we come up with a report with 10 years old data, with the climate science changing very quickly, I think it's difficult. And as Dr. Ramesh and Dr. Dimri pointing out, Gunjan also pointing out, that time is also running out. Whatever we see, the time is running out, say the climate change impacts point of view and otherwise. I think it's a fantastic discourse. I think if none of you have a bursting point to add, then I think I'd like to conclude here. One, very quickly, Mr. Sheikh. Yes.
30 seconds. I sent you a report. It's a regional toolkit on managing heat waves.
Okay.
It's based on my learning in Ahmedabad and elsewhere. And since I don't have everybody's address,
that's where I'm coming to.
I hope you can share it with everyone.
Absolutely. So we can actually learn and unlearn from each other. And the agendas and issues of South Asia be quite common. What is happening in Delhi and Rajasthan across the border in Pakistan is not much different. What is happening in our Sundarbans is not much different from what's happening in Bangladesh. So we need to learn and unlearn from each other. We need to have data, and Dr. Dimri was also pointing out, Dr. Ramesh said that we have improved over the last few years, but we need to improve more, because these data deficiencies perhaps will be very critical in the years to come. And with this hope that this kind of discussion will only trigger the politicians to, I would say, more science-oriented decision-making. Till now, we have not been that. And perhaps I really don't know, perhaps the day is not far away when the South Asian scientists across the countries will come up something like IPCC South Asia report. Like the IPCC now does a report for globally, perhaps IPCC South Asia report targeting the countries and the politicians in South Asia. With that hope, and with the hope that we'll keep on talking. Unless we talk, nothing will happen. So this platform is there to talk. Yes, so we'll keep on talking. We'll keep on talking. Yes, Dr. Ramesh.
South Asia is going to be formed that will address these climate
Absolutely.
issues.
So I think we need to keep on talking from media, and with the people like Dr. Ramesh, Dr. Dimri, Gunjan is doing wonderful work in climate change, Mr. Sheikh in Pakistan. As he said, he learned from Ahmedabad. Somebody may learn from Karachi. So we need to continue this process of learning and unlearning from each other. With that, for your time, thanks for your time, and we conclude here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to South Asian Environment Dialogue.